It's like every day you're walking a tightrope closer and closer to your desire. And every time you take a step, it gets scarier and scarier. Each foot in front of the other brings the most intense fear you've ever felt, and it keeps getting increasingly worse. So when and how do we trust during this process? Trusting God in this process can be difficult at all times, because how far can you go with your faith actually? How far can you take it? How far are you willing to stretch your faith? Because you know that He is unlimited, omnipresent, all-knowing, all-powerful, but we still don't trust Him to that level. We don't trust whatever we believe as the higher power, whatever we believe as our guidance. Are you willing to trust that to the very ends? Because what I'm noticing is that when you're coming to the edge of your desire, you start to feel like you can't trust anymore. I've taken this too far. I need to slow down. I need to slow down. I need to retract a little bit. I need to relax. I don't know how this is going to end up. This looks super scary. But what's happening is that your trust is being tested. And if you break under pressure, your life is going to reflect that. And so I don't want you to mistake going far in your belief and far in your trust as you're being irresponsible. Because what happens when you go with your faith, you go far with your faith, and you go far with your faith, but at some point you stop having faith and you crack under pressure, you've automatically switched over into 3D humanoid, where there's blame. Things go wrong. You're irresponsible. Labels. And so if you were to just stay in that higher consciousness for just longer, whether that's you watching my videos, someone else's videos, staying in that trusting, staying in that knowing, staying up, airy instead of heavy and weighed down. Stay up in the creative realm for long enough to trust for long enough for it to actually work out. Because I believe that you are being divinely guided. I believe that you would be, because of all the millions of videos that go up on the internet every single day. You ended up somehow on my corner of the YouTube sphere, and you like watching my videos. That was not an accident. This is not a, oops, I clicked on it on accident and this is just stuff I shouldn't listen to. Take it or leave it. But I do believe you're being divinely guided. And so if you've been thinking about this duality and wondering why when you trust sometimes it ends bad, it's not because the trusting is the problem. It's the fact that you broke that trust, you fell into lack, and now you're back on a spiral downwards. And so it can feel like, oh, the trust, I trusted too much. I shouldn't be trusting that much. That turns into a punishment of you being irresponsible. So one of the ways that I see this, and because I solely talk about money, let's talk about it. When I pay for my coaches, then I'm paying thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to learn from the best coaches in the world, like I have for the past 5 years. When I get coaching from them, when I purchase something, if I'm in a lack mindset, I cannot blame the coach or the mentor for the program not working. I have to be in the consciousness of allowing the work to work, allowing the things to be said for me to receive them. I have to be in receptive energy, regardless if I spend the money or not. So when you're purchasing something and you're investing in yourself and you're trying to figure out, how far do I go? How far do I trust? How far do I take this? Just know that card you're swiping, those imaginary numbers, those zeros and ones on the screen, all of that doesn't exist on the realm where you're divinely guided. All of those things, 3D things, exist when you are in the 3D realm. Blame, mistrust, irresponsibility, all those labels. Because think about it. What happens when you fail? Immediately, you have a feeling of failure, which brings up thoughts of sadness and lack and scarcity. And then you might stop investing in that thing, or you might stop buying that thing. You might, whatever you're doing with the money, you restrict that activity. Maybe you were buying your favorite coffee. Now you don't, which is telling yourself you're not worthy of the coffee. And having less money means like having less physical dollars or physical zeros in your bank account now means you're unworthy of the thing that you want. So you are essentially, because you can get those things from anywhere, right? You don't have to pay for those things. But because you restrict your money, and that's what you did with the money, that is what's going to perpetuate in your 3D reality. So what happens when you fail needs to be snap right back into abundance. And you need to be in a community where you can do that quickly. The money consciousness community can do that because I post in there tons of activities and sacred things that are going to help you to stay in that mindset. Because I'm going to tell you, as a spiritual being, money is one of a journey. It really, really is. It's amazing. But if you snap back into lack, the 3D world is not going to say, wait. You don't actually believe in this. You're going to snap out of it soon, but don't come here. Like, it's okay. It's not going to tell you that. It's going to say, welcome back to the dark side. You finally made it back. So it's important that you take responsibility for your trust, because the world is not going to push you to trust. You have to put yourself in those communities, in the money consciousness community, on this channel, on other like-minded people's channels, or simply making your own content to share with the world. So you have to be able to trust. You have to remember that you're divinely guided and nothing is happening to you. When lack happens, when quote unquote lack happens, you need to be in those communities that can lift you right back up, that can make you feel like, okay, I can do this. I got this. This is perfectly fine. Help you see the lesson in all of the things. Help you to extract the goodness out of every situation. Because living in lack is so exhausting. And it's so hard to get out of lack if you're mentally there. If you're only there in the 3D, but in your head you have abundance, it's a lot easier to get out. But when you have both the 3D and the mindset working against you, that's a very tough position. So at least take care of that mental part of the trust. Because when you're ready to go far with the trust, that mental needs to be there. Even if you can't act in trust and you've gone as far as you can physically and with your financials, but you can go deeper with your mind. So remember that you're divinely guided to all the information that you find. And you need to understand that the next time you have a failure or a loss, or you thought something would go and it didn't go, or you just feel like you're not going fast enough and all these things, once you get yourself back in that money consciousness of abundance, then you're going to be able to think higher than the 3D realm, which puts you back in the guide of being divinely guided. put you back into trust with God, put you back into oneness with your purpose. So you need to have that stuck on you like glue, because it's such a 3D thing, and it really shook me up for so long. It's such a 3D paradox, because you're like, if I keep spending this money, then I have to work for it to come back. The point of you spending the money with those coaches is so that you can get rid of the lack mindset and break away the beliefs so that you can never have to deal with that again. So you're spending money from the place of lack. And then when you get lack back in return, then you're confused. So when you're spending money, remember that you're divinely guided. You can't just 50% of the way feel divinely guided and 50% of the way be having your foot on the brake. Because now you're in limbo, and now you're really messing up your nervous system more than if you were just in stress, because now you're pulling yourself between stress and abundance, two extremes. You're going to tear yourself apart. So pick one. If you want to live in lack, live in lack. But if you know that you are a divine being, put yourself in those communities. Pay for that thing. It really is confusing, I understand, because you're like, I barely have it. But the point of you spending what you have to get in those spiritual communities is so that you can calibrate to a higher level and have less of the problems you currently have. Grow in some sort of way. You can do it without spending money, of course. You don't need to spend money to make money, but you won't be making money faster than if you just paid for it. So yeah, you can make money without spending money, but it will never be faster than just paying for it. So that's what I see. When I get my favorite coaches, I pay them, because I would rather have that money go to my education than anything else. That's what I care about. And I'm noticing that, if I were to spend $200 on a course, at the time of spending that, it might feel like a lot. But then when I look back 2 years later, I'm like, oh, I barely even remember what that course was about. Or you feel like, I don't even remember how much it costs. But at the time of buying it, it feels so heavy because you're just in the lack mindset. But the point of buying the thing is to get out of the lack mindset. So if you don't buy the thing, you keep the lack mindset. If you do buy the thing, you at least have a reason for it to get gone because you're getting help. So you have to have both sides that align properly. Because as a divine being, it's so easy to fall back into humanhood and look at the numbers, look at the credit, look at the whatever. And I talk about finances on this channel. Strictly, solely money is what I talk about. But I understand that spiritual people have a different relationship to money. We have a way different relationship with money. And so if you feel triggered by the way that you feel like you need to spend money, maybe you're triggered because you're looking at an example of the 3D world of regular people who would never attempt what you're attempting, who would never desire what you're desiring, who would never even reach for what you're trying to reach for. So it's going to feel cringy. But remember that there are other examples of other people who are out here doing the exact same thing as you, out of love, out of pure heart, not out of idiotic movements, but out of pure understanding and knowing about spirituality and divinity. So for you as a spiritual person, you may do things that look on the outside irresponsible with money, but you know what you're doing. And so what happens is that when you spend money to do something spiritually, like with a coach, and then you get into a lack mindset, then you're just stuck like thinking about what you paid, thinking about what you didn't get, feeling like you're irresponsible, feeling like you shouldn't have spent that, like talking to your parents and saying, oh, this was a scam, and this was a scam, and this was a cult, and this was a cult group, and all this other stuff. That's lower consciousness than you currently are at. So don't go low, go higher. It can feel really, really easy to go low because it's easier to drop down. If you're feeling empowered and spending your money on trying to learn things, and you're just going and trying and going and putting effort, as soon as something happens, it's easy to spiral down and drop down. But I encourage you to get in the proper communities and listen to the correct content that keeps you at the frequency that holds you at the frequency at which you want to exist.